And you are listening, watching to another edition of Blue It Splits, joined by my good friend, Mr. Michael Nania. Nania, before we get into all the football stuff, how are you doing, just in general?
Pretty good. Although even outside of the Jets stuff, there was some questionable news today. I mean, we had NFL Red Zone and the official confirmation they're going to have ads on there. There's a certain site where people may watch sports that might not be accessible anymore.
Well, it doesn't even matter now. You can just say it, Stream East.
Stream East is down. I don't know. Things are collapsing around here.
Well, I guess I actually should just get right into it with the biggest news of the day, and that is with the Jets sack the quarterback with a $2 purchase at McDonald's, you get a free Big Mac. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it makes up for the AVT injury. Justin Fields might be getting sacked a little bit more often now, or a few more run stuffs in the backfield, but I'll be having a Big Mac while I watch it, a free one. So it's all good.
Yeah. Brutal. We'll get into the chat. We'll talk a little bit about the depth chart just because I haven't been around for a stream. I believe I missed 2 weeks. As you guys can see, I've been busy as hell trying to get 4 different reviews out there. Harrison Phillips review just dropped today, so go watch that video. And then we have a ESSA. I don't know if it's ESSA or ASA poll, which we have to talk about him and the depth chart and all of this other stuff. But we'll get into the chat first. Game week, obviously, with some, water poured on the fire with the AVT injury. I'm sure we'll get into that. But Eagle thing starts off with, seems like AVT could be out for the season. Guess who will be drafting a high on another guard in 2026? Guess who's getting right into it? AVT. It seems like people are saying it might be the other triceps. I don't know if it was the first time and now it's the left this time. But a significant injury, and now you had Schefter. I think you had Schefter and Schultz both say that, he's believed to be out for season. So how do we react to that? Obviously, the big blow hasn't been healthy. He was healthy his rookie year, right? Second year missed with the was it the triceps second year, and then the ACL or the ACL the third year, or vice versa? Okay, so the triceps second year, third year ACL, fourth year healthy, fifth year on that
Achilles.
5th year option. Yeah. Achilles, okay, not ACL. So then the 5th year, you have another injury. So you're talking about 3 injuries, season-long injuries in 3 and 5 years. So obviously hurts. I look back and he was the 6th ranked player on my top 25 list for the Jets this season. I think pretty easily he's the Jets' best offensive lineman when he is healthy. I don't really think there's much of a competition there. He's really good in the run game. And you're a team who's going to be relying on the run game. And we talked about so much that, hey, this offense needs to be top half of the league, maybe top 10-ish. The running game needs to be top 10 to really carry this offense. And you just lost your best offensive lineman. And now we're assuming that obviously Myers is going to stick at center and Tippmann is going to move to guard. So overall, your reaction to AVT being out for most likely the season?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't think there's a way you could sugarcoat it. I mean, like you said, I think the offensive line is the main reason that I think you could find any optimism about this team potentially being, good this year in the sense, compete for a wild card, playoff spot, whatever. And they lost their best player. And I think the biggest effect of that is you used to be able to look at this unit and they weren't going to have a major weak link. We'll see how Membu plays as a rookie. He could be a liability at times, and we'll see how Olu develops year 2. It wasn't perfect, but they didn't have a, bad starter or someone who was easily exploitable. But now you remove AVT and you throw Josh Myers in there, and he's a high-level backup like we've talked about. I think that's a positive of this. I think it could be a lot worse than Josh Myers. I think most teams in the league would have someone worse than Josh Myers coming up right now, but he's still a backup. And you're going from 1 through 5, just 5 really talented, strong players to, now there's a weak link there. And we've heard, many times the offensive line is only as strong as its weakest link. And that's true to an extent. So I think that's the thing that hurts the most is this was going to be a lineup that was so complete from left to right, and now there's a hole in there. So we'll see how they work around it. They were going to have injuries at some point. All these guys weren't going to play 17 games, but now you're going right into the season with an elite defensive line to start the year, and then a few more coming up after that, and you already are down your best player. So it's definitely a huge blow.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Like you said, we were going from talking about everybody being above average at the minimum on this offensive line to now having a guy who's a very low end starter to a high end backup. Assuming Tippmann moves to guard, which I do think he's more comfortable at guard, and I think he'll be maybe even a better guard than center. But looking forward now, it's a thing where you can't sign ABT unless now maybe it's a thing where they extend Simpson sometime in the season, and do you give ABT a flyer, maybe on a flyer contract to see if he can stay healthy? He went from costing maybe $20 million a year to maybe costing 10, now. So maybe draft the young guy, bring in ABT back for another year and see if he can maintain his health. But I do think that after this season that Tippmann's going to be looked at as a full-time guard. I think he's going to prove that he's going to be better there. And at the end of the day, if you go into free agency with that flexibility, if there's a really good center, great, sign the really good center and Tippmann stays at guard. If there's a really good guard, you can sign in free agency, then sign him and put Tippmann at center. And obviously same thing with the draft, right? Just kind of take what's available to you. Cause I think Tippmann is obviously really versatile inside there, but not only does it hurt, it's ABT and it hurts the overall offensive line, I also think it hurts Membu too, right? Like you have Tippmann, who really hasn't played much guard at this level, and you're talking about Membu, who's going to be next to one of the, at least top 10 right guards in the league when he's healthy, to going to a guy who's much more inexperienced at playing that position in general. So I also think it hurts Membu. So I think that's the thing that you can't overlook. But what do you think in terms of the future? Do you think like, hey, kind of like we talked about a little bit pre-show, it's like, he made the decision easy for the Jets. I really don't think there's much debate now with ABT or John Simpson. Like, sign John Simpson now to an extension, and then we'll figure out what happens with the guard center position going to next year. But you don't want to have two holes on the interior. So I would look to get Simpson, Simpson done before the season ends. Not now necessarily, but maybe by a week, something like that. You extend Simpson for a year or two.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's a silver lining because it's objectively a negative thing that ABT got injured. But you do get some clarity now moving forward because, with him healthy, you're looking at potentially losing John Simpson, investing in AVT, who we already knew was an injury-prone player. And obviously now that's only been further confirmed with this. So there is a little more clarity now because, like you said, hopefully Tippmann establishes himself as a quality right guard. And at some point you can extend him. And now that you don't have to think about AVT, there's a little more wiggle room to get Simpson extended. And then you go into next year, and now you just got to solve the center position, which it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but it is the least valuable of the offensive line positions. You don't see them picked first round too often. They don't get a ton of money in free agency. So that's an easier position to fill than finding a guard, conceivably. Not saying they'll easily find someone who's good, but it's something that you could address without having to spend the most assets. So I think that's hopefully how it plays out. Tippmann plays well at guard, extend him either after this season, midway next year, whenever that might be. Extend Simpson, like you said, bye week, sort of like they did with John Franklin Myers a couple years ago, because he is coming off a career year. Let's see if he could do it for at least into halfway point of the season. Hopefully extend him during the year. And then, you could go into next season still with the top 4 spots filled and just needing that center also addressed. So there's some clarity that comes with it, but obviously you would prefer it wasn't at the cost of your most talented player on this unit.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about it in a little bit too with the depth chart and stuff like that. Anyone explain to me why Ruckert is starting over Mason Taylor and why is Ruckert on the roster? We'll talk about the starting thing. It's still the Jets, social media team who puts this together. It's not like Aaron Glenn was, had to fill out a depth chart and then this is what it is. It's right. The people guessing. So they really have no idea. And why is he on the roster? I guess we can talk about that in a little bit too, but the Jets are carrying 4 tight ends at this point and a fullback. But you're assuming they're going to run, 12 personnel, 22 personnel, all that stuff a little bit heavier than other teams. So they're going to have quite a bit. But yeah, I'm shocked that Ruckert's on the team and you have guys like Pritchett or Brandon Smith or, whoever else off the roster. So why is he still here? Probably because he's at this point, I'm taking Mason Taylor over him as a blocker, right? Like just the unknown, him versus Ruckert. I'm taking Mason Taylor over him, I guess, because at least he has more control in his pass blocking game. I'm taking Woods just because, again, unknown and a little bit bigger. But I guess Ruckert's the third best blocker in terms of the tight ends because, obviously Smart isn't. So maybe that's why he's here. But then you have Beck as well. And what is he going to play? I don't know. I think a lack of talent at tight end is mainly why he's here. But in terms of like looking at Ruckert over Mason Taylor, it's not going to be that way on game day. I'm assuming Ruckert's going to be tight end too, even though we don't necessarily condone that. And it probably should be Beck at this point.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, with the depth chart, I don't think it's indicative. Mason Taylor is going to play the most snaps at tight end in this game by far. He'll get the most targets. I would be shocked if Ruckert did, but I mean, how long do you think it is until do you even think Jelani Woods plays in this game? I was going to say, how long do you think until he's the tight end too? But do you think we even get an active Woods here in week 1?
Probably not, right? I would guess not for Woods. But I really don't know. Like, what do they have it? The playbook like simplified enough for him to come in and run a few routes? I'm not sure, but I would guess no if I had to guess. So yeah, week 1 it's probably just Mason Taylor, Ruckert with Stone Smart as the backup. But like I would play Beck personally as tight end too, way before I put Ruckert on the field. Now obviously if it's a 22 personnel type situation and Beck is in the backfield, then fine, put in Ruckert. Like if you had to choose Ruckert or Smart, you're going to choose Ruckert at least because Smart, there's just no possibility of him really blocking those type of guys unless it's like in the open field. Where at least Ruckert, if he lands his hand on you, if he's not bending from the waist and ducking his head and throwing his hands out and lunging, he actually can make contact and do something valuable. But I don't think Mason Taylor, I don't think Woods is going to be part of it. And we'll talk about him in a little bit as we get into the depth chart and who they traded for and who they signed for and all of that stuff. Why can't we have nice things? I don't know. Braden says he doesn't believe in curses. At this point, I can't be so sure if Mr. Joe Namath may have to perish for the Jets to actually win something. But yeah, like everything was so quiet in this offseason, quiet going into the in the offseason and going into week 1 and minus having to do 4 reviews in a week. It was all going swimmingly, and then this happens, and it sucks because again, we were relying on that offensive line. You just missed your best piece, or you're missing your best piece now. But drafting a center and move Tippmann to guard. Yeah, I think they have true flexibility. I think they could do either. I would say it's probably going to be easier to bring in a center than a guard, like Nania said. But who's to say that a really good guard doesn't come out in free agency and they have some familiarity with the Lions system or Hayden or whatever, and they want to sign here? Like, I don't think you have to force a center. I don't think you have to force a guard. Just let it come to you in free agency. So you'll be slipping on Steve Hayden. He's going to have all these boys just fine. Like, sure, but I'd rather Steve Hayden be coaching ABT on the starting line than Josh Myers on the starting line. Run D is going to be nice this year. Again, we'll talk about those guys in a little bit. Tippmann moves to guard. Feel terrible for ABT. He's a good dude and a hard worker. You have to feel for him, right? Because like, how the hell did he injure his triceps again? I think Nani froze, unless he's just wildly still. I'm pretty sure Nani froze. So we'll try to get him back whenever you get him back. Let me see. Remove him, take him back. Nope. Okay. Nani has perished. And maybe it was the Nani curse. Since he started covering the Jets, we've really sucked. So maybe we just eliminated the problem right there. We'll see. Nani is no longer with us. Billy, Axel, Foley, you great shows, guys. You did a wonderful job with the solo pods as well. Me solo on the live stream and Nani solo on Cool Your Jets. Nani has been doing the solo episodes on Cool Your Jets, so make sure to check that out as well. And I know I haven't been around for 2 weeks again. I've just been so freaking busy. By the time I finished the film of the Giants game, it was Wednesday or Thursday. The Eagles game was on Friday. So I was like, am I going to put out a film review on Wednesday or Friday or Thursday when there's a game on Friday? Probably not. So sorry for missing. Nani, I said maybe you were the I said maybe you were the curse, because we haven't really been winning since you've covered the Jets.
Yeah.
So maybe you had to perish for the Jets to win. So maybe,
it's not even just since I started covering them. Literally, the year I started watching was 2011. So it's a direct correlation there. I would say that is a possibility that can't be ruled out. So we'll see how much longer I have. But once my time is up, you guys could check and see if anything changes directly in line with that.
So I have a master plan now. It's between me and the chat. But next time Nani comes to the tailgate, I'm going to try to line up against him on a one-on-one situation, and I'm going to push him into a car really hard, hopefully knock him out a little bit, and then he's going to have a brain bleed, but I'm going to convince him that he doesn't need to go to the hospital, that he's fine, and he's going to die in his sleep, and we'll all win again. So it's fine. So if that does not happen, do not be suspicious. Don't be suspicious of me if Nani
just totally it's just a product of the love of the game and just the competitive spirit. There would be nothing intentional about it.
Only good news the Jets got is they don't have to go against Parsons this year, which what do you think about that one? Obviously we're not a Cowboys or a Packers podcast. You're talking about the Jets getting more for a safety, a box safety specifically, more than a edge rusher who is at the minimum a top 5 guy. Right? Him, Crosby, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Parsons, right? That's probably your top guys right there. So maybe I'm missing one. But you're talking about a top 5 edge rusher in the league that, Membu or Olu Fashanu is not going to have to go against, or even, maybe Myers when they isolate him versus center sometimes. But yeah, pretty wild trade for the Cowboys there.
Yeah, I was shocked at the return. I thought at the very least, if that went down, they would get something massive, but 2 likely low first round picks, and throwing Kenny Clark in there is a nothing. He's a almost 30-year-old D tackle who's not much of a pass rusher anymore. And the Cowboys at this point aren't trying to win the Super Bowl this year once you trade your best player. So that to me is just it's shocking what some of these owners, especially this specific one, but there are a lot of owners in this league who have egos. Maybe they're a little older than you would like your decision makers to be. So I feel like that was kind of elder abuse by the Packers, in my opinion.
I know we all bitch about Woody Johnson, but imagine Jerry Jones being your leader. When's the last time they even won a playoff game? It's been quite a bit. And I don't think they really did. They don't even have a GM, right? Like he's the GM of the team as well. So, man, we'll get to some super chats. No skills. Do all teams lose impact starters for the season every year? Rodgers, JJ, Brees, ABT times 3, Michael Carter II, Chuck Clark, heck, even Becton. Yeah, we've had quite a few. D. Milner, even though that was at the end of the season. But I feel like we probably lose a little bit more than other teams, but other teams have devastating injuries quite often. Like look at the Dolphins.
Rashawn Slater did go down for the year a few weeks ago. So I will that at least bounces it out. But the Chargers are up there with the Jets in terms of
Aiden Hutchinson in the first game with the Lions last year. Right?
Yeah.
Was that the first game of the season, opening gaming?
No, it was like 5 games in, but he was having an insane season before that.
Yeah.
So like you wonder how far the Lions could have gotten if that didn't happen. We think about the 2022 Jets and if Brees and AVT stayed healthy, but that team won 7 games. The Lions won 15 games without their best player for most of the season. So it does happen to other teams, but obviously with the Jets, it just feels like it's a lot of either right before the season or very early in the season, which is unfortunate because then you're missing more games than if it were later.
Yeah, no, brutal. Maybe the Jets are turned up a little bit, in terms of injuries. I know a couple of years ago we had a lot of injuries. It was like the Jets have more money on IR than the starting roster. This was like in 2020, 2021, whatever, some of those years. But yeah, maybe we get injured a little bit more than some other teams, but it happens. It's brutal to lose again your best. I'd rather have lost. I don't know. I'm not going to start naming names of who I would rather lost, but ABT is a really impactful starter for the Jets. I'm not going to start bringing that upon anybody else. Another super chat, Marvin Guns. Read in the New York Post that Aaron Glenn chats with Bill Parcells weekly. Perhaps we have a shadow coach like the Deep State. Yeah, it's not one of the draws to Aaron Glenn, like, oh, he chats with Bill Parcells, but it wasn't a turnoff. He said that we've known that for a while, that he gets advice from Bill Parcells after the games and they talk about the games. And discuss strategy and all that stuff. So yeah, no, it's again, you have him with Bill Parcells, you have him under Dan Campbell, who's winning a lot with Sean Payton, a little bit with Bill Belichick. So it comes from a great tree. And yeah, it's nice to see that, I'd rather have him be talking to Bill Parcells than not. So I'll take that. Let's see. I'll go to the next one. Thank you for the super chat, though, Marvin. Let me find out where the hell we were. Keep building. No, I think we're a little bit before that. Connor Long says, I came in here for the Big Mac promo talk. Beyond disappointed in you, Nania. What a disgrace. But we did talk about the Big Mac right off the jump. So it wasn't Nania, Connor, but I did bring it up. I think it was the first topic we brought up was the Big Mac. So at least we can all get fat. That's great. Matt says, how this
I haven't
works
been
when
to
you let
McDonald's
ABT
in
go.
years. I don't know, maybe I had did I have like a salad from there or something, like on a road trip a few months ago? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm not a McDonald's guy anymore.
If I'm on the road and I need like a quick bite to eat, and you're out of the state and you're just shopping at a rest stop or something like that, it's either like Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell for me. Those are
Chick-fil-A would be my priority. And McDonald's has got to you got to be way out where that's your only option for me to even consider it at this point.
Their fries are still good though.
They do have good fries.
ABT will go and be healthy with another team. Of course, that's how it'll work with the Jets. Just like freaking Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman couldn't tie his shoes with the Jets without getting hurt, and now he's been healthy for how many years with the Vikings? It's crazy. Rob D says the offensive line is only as good as its weakest link. That this sucks. It's gonna hurt. And I saw some chats in here like, oh well, don't worry because Tippmann's taking his spot. It's not Tippmann versus ABT, which it is still because ABT is a better player at guard than Joe Tippmann is right now. But it's replacing Tippmann at center with Josh Myers at center. That's the problem. Now Josh Myers is a good pass protector, so he's really good with communication. So he may even be better than Tippmann in terms of the communication stuff and not like getting stunts and twists and all that stuff past them. But the run blocking is going to be a significant downgrade what's his name than Tippmann. So. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, no doubt. Let's pull up some. Where are his highlights? Let's look at some Josh Myers highlights. Will that make you feel fine about him, Lonnie? If I do that,
yeah, it could give us a little confidence. But no, I was gonna say I feel similarly. Like I think you feel good about Tippmann at guard. I think he'll be better there because he struggles with a lot of things that are specific to center. Like setting the protections, communications. Figuring out where he should be helping, the snaps, obviously. So a lot of those things are off the table. I think he'll be a better guard. He's not quite as good as AVT because, as you said, I think we agreed, AVT is an elite guard. I don't think Tippmann will be that, but it shouldn't be a huge drop off. He'll be good. But, now you have Myers at center who, hopefully pass protection can be a wash versus Tippmann because of the things you said, but he's not a good run blocker. And that's where you're seeing this impact is AVT's elite run blocking versus now you have Josh Myers in there. That's where the drop off is going to come in.
Yeah, we'll just watch the highlights and just buy in. That's all we're asking right here.
We're gonna watch the highlights here.
Losing ABT at guard with Tippmann ready to step in isn't a problem. ABT was our starting. If ABT, I get it. Like, sure. I don't know, man. I can't agree with this. It's not a big deal. Like it's your best offensive lineman, and you go from having a Pro Bowl level player on your offensive line to replacing him with Myers, who comes into the starting lineup with a bad starter. So you go from Pro Bowler to bad starter at one spot on your offensive line. So I can't minimize it. I'm not going to do that. It's definitely a big deal. Keep building the offensive and defensive lines, please. They're going to. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. If I had to guess, you have everybody's on the team still next year, but ABT, and ABT gets replaced. So we'll see. Sauce is now questionable with a fibula injury. Is that?
Yeah, they put out the injury report, but it was Garofalo who said that he's still projected to play. They didn't have an actual practice today. It was just a walkthrough, and they'll put out the projected designations. But yeah, he was on there, questionable with the fibula. We also had Okorafor had a hand. He was questionable. And who's the other one? AVT was obviously on there, and Taylor Tyrod Taylor was on there.
ABT might even be back around week 10 or so. I hope so. If he could be a background, obviously, if he can be back at any point this season, I'll sign the dotted line because on my mind, he's gone for the season at this point. But that's where the Jets are really win a lot of games. I think realistically, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but through 10 weeks, I think we'd sign up for 4 and 6, right? Probably at this point. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, like, he's okay with the Jets sucking, but the first 10 weeks are definitely the harder part of the schedule or so, with the last 7 or 8 weeks being much easier. So if they can go in 4 and 6 to week 10, get ABT back, finish up, with the last, with the last 7 games and finish 4 and 3, 5 and 2, like I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. So how are you? I am good, I think. Eric Weinstein says, before the ABT news, I had the Jets going 6 and 11, winning 3 of the last 4 games. Now I have them 3 and 14, assuming another starting play on the O-line will go down. They need to develop Cook in these blowout games. At the end of the year, they should carry 3 quarterbacks. In fact, if Fields openly complains or drags the team down with his consistent downer demeanor, cutting him before. Okay, so the one thing I will say is Fields has never been known for a downer demeanor. Everybody has praised Justin Fields in the Bears and in the Steelers organization for his leadership. So we could talk about him not being a good quarterback. I don't think we can criticize him for his downer demeanor, and cutting him before the end. Okay. Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they said it all. I think they said it all, honestly.
Your cat's literally got your tongue on that one.
Yeah.
Fangs, because okay, let's see. I'm just trying to see. What are your odds on Mason Taylor 2,500 yard season? If Fields needs a crutch, I'd be happy with it being him. It was funny. My buddy was over.
I think he'll hit.
Okay, so my thing is, and me and my buddy were talking about this. He came over for the Eagles preseason game. His wife's an Eagles fan. It was a good time. Jets came back a little bit. Should have actually won that game, but nonetheless, if you have, I think Fields over under is 25.50 this year, right? So if you take Garrett Wilson and give him, let's say, 1,100 yards this year, right? But kind of like assume that's where he's about. You only have 1,400 yards between the rest of the roster.
Yeah.
So if you give Mason Taylor 500 yards, you only have 900 yards for, Breece Hall, for Mason Taylor, for Ruckert, for Gibson, for Lazard, for Tyler Johnson, for all these guys. So I don't even know. I think 500 would be a solid number, just based on the fact that Fields is probably going to throw for 2,500 to 3,000 yards this season.
Yeah. Well, I just did my stat predictions a few days ago. I had him at just over 3,000, and that's assuming 17 games. So I think the 2,500 is assuming, he might get injured at some point. He might get benched because he hasn't played a full 17 games yet for both of those reasons. So team-wise, they should easily clear 3,000 because 2,500 over 17 games would be insanely low for any team. Just they have to get to that point. So I think it'll be more like 3,000 at the minimum to go around over the course of the whole season, whether that's Fields or combination of him and whoever else plays quarterback. But yeah, even when I was doing those predictions, assuming he gets about 3,000 passing yards, it's the same thing you just mentioned. If you're giving about a third of that to Garrett, because we assume he's going to clear 1,000 pretty easily, it's not a lot to go around for everyone else. I think Breece and Taylor are going to get a good bit of that. I had Taylor as my second leading receiver. I forget what number exactly I put him at. I'll pull it back up, but I had him over 500. I think just based on volume, he should get that. But yeah, there's definitely not a lot of receiving production to go around outside of Garrett.
Yeah. I would say I would sign the dotted line for 500 yards for him right now. I think he'll be easily 2 or 3 right at the minimum.
Yeah,
I could see Breece being 2.
540 as the second leading receiver. So that is around what the line is.
Eagle says, Joe, what do you think about the Gotham jerseys, and will you be buying one? I don't think they're bad. I don't hate them, but are they dark green or are they gray? Like I don't even know what color they are.
That's the thing. I don't know how these are going to look in a game because sometimes they show it and it's almost like all black or just really dark gray. And sometimes it's very clearly green. So I don't know how it's going to look in a game or like if you buy one. what that's even going to look like. I feel like it's better the darker it looks and the less they're kind of doing the green thing, because it just kind of, I don't like that shade of green personally, but I don't know. They weren't as bad as I expected. I like some parts of it, but it also isn't. I think there were better ones out of the rivalry uniforms. I'm definitely not buying one though.
Yeah, I don't think so. Do they still have, so that they have the, do they still have like the throwback jerseys, like the Joe Namath era jerseys in the repertoire
Yeah,
this year? Or
they
did
could
that
wear
go
all of them
away?
because they
Okay.
increased it to 4 alternate games, I believe, and you could have the 3 different helmet shells, which is why they have a black helmet for this one, because they're keeping the other one and just putting a different sticker on it. So I think they're all in the rotation, but we'll see if they do that because they don't put uniform schedules out. So
Yeah. Alex AT keeps getting hurt. I like the guy, but he wasn't a huge impact last year when healthy. He wasn't a huge impact when healthy last year. I would disagree with that. I would say he's near Pro Bowl level. I did a review on him, and he was very, very good. He's very, very good last year. We are headed to 6 or 7 win season. So I think before the season, like my official prediction was 7-10. I think I'm going to move that to 6-11. I think this affects me by 1 game down because of ABT. So I'm going. I think the over under for me was set at 6.5, and I went the over. I think I'm moving it down to 6 wins now. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I do think losing your best run blocking offensive lineman for a run first team does hurt. That's just my opinion.
yeah, I'm the same as you. I've stuck with 7, and I haven't made an official prediction yet, or if I want to change it based off this injury. But that seems fair, because I think 7 wins. Well, first of all, that's above what people are expecting. They're at 5.5, so that's kind of optimistic to go for 7-10, and that's based on this offensive line. That's the primary reason to think that the Jets could win games this year, is because they could run the ball really well. They could pass protect well enough to hopefully keep turnovers down, even if they don't, have an explosive passing game. And those are things that could win you some games, even if you're not a super talented team. But, suddenly you lose your best run blocker and one of your best pass blockers. Those things don't appear as certain. There probably will be a game in there that gets flipped. So I would say I'm kind of similar. I'm considering moving down to 6-11.
Yeah. Gucci Finesse is cackling at the 2,500 from Vegas. I believe it's Vegas or some sportsbook at 2,500. 3,800 passing, 700 rushing. He might be back next year as a starting quarterback again for the Jets, but I guess we'll see. I would anticipate high 2s, low 3s if I had to, if he was healthy all year. We'll see what happens. Maybe they have to throw the ball a little bit more now. The loss of ABT will make no difference in the ultimate win-loss total. The Jets still, hey, I wish I had your confidence. 8 to 10 games. I'll sign the dotted line for 8 right now. I think that'd be a really positive season considering the quarterback situation for the Jets. So ABT injury confirmed as torn triceps. Was it confirmed yet? I don't know. I know it was an arm injury, and apparently it was his left arm. So I'm not sure if it's confirmed triceps yet, but that's what people are talking
Schefter
about.
said it was feared to be torn triceps, and
Okay.
he's just looking for a second opinion on whether to have surgery.
In your stat prediction, did you have Brees at 1K rushing? I'm going to say right now, for me, I would have him at like 8,900. So let's call it like 850, 900. I'd probably have him at. Call it 875.
I did not. And I didn't. And I think the hardest part is just knowing what the split is going to be with him and Allen. But I decided to predict that Allen's going to be similar, but slightly more in terms of carries. So I put Hall at 735 for rushing and his receive, but he had a lot more receiving than Allen. So do you think Hall is going to be the top running back in carries? Do you think Allen could outpace him?
I still think he's the leading running back in carries. I do. But I don't think it's by much. I think Brees will severely outpace him now in terms of like catching the ball and being a receiver, even though, again, I think Jets fans do overrate his ability to catch a football and run routes because we've never really seen him do anything plus in the receiving game, minus 1 play against the Titans in 4 years. 3 years. Yeah, in 3 years, he's only had 1+ play in the receiving game. So everybody talks about him like he's Christian McCaffrey, but he's done nothing to prove that he's even close to that level. If anything, it's been the opposite. When he got the ball last year a lot, he dropped the ball. In practice, we heard him, I think it was after the Giants game. He had like 2 drops in a row at practice. So ABT has not shown good hands at all. So But with that being said, I do think he's more dynamic than a Brees, than a Braylon Allen in the open field if he is healthy and he's not like as slow as he was last year. So I think he gets slightly more carries, but then in terms of total touches, he outpaces him by a good chunk because of the receiving game. So we'll see. But somebody said that he'll be traded by the bye week or the trade deadline, which I may agree with. Like at that point in the season, if you're not going to re-sign him, and you're not really going anywhere, I would be okay with trading him. I don't think he's going to be re-signed anyway. So Allen will be running back one by week 5. I can see that too, especially if Brees looks like he did last year because he was not good, last year. So assuming no trades, do you think Arian Smith will be the clear wide receiver 2 by the end of the season? Hard to get excited about Jet receiver prospects, but I like the guy. What do you think on that one, Nanya? Because I know you were a little bit more harsh to him at the start, but it seems like over time he's kind of opened you up a little bit to his game. So what do you think about Arian Smith and even his preseason? I don't think we talked about that. Did I do the video against the Giants for him? I think I did. So I didn't do the show after that. But so I haven't talked on stream about him in that Giants game. But what do you think about him being receiver 2 by the end of the season and overall, obviously, I speak about lightening up on him a little bit.
Yeah, I think he will be the receiver 2 by the end of the season. I think the moves they made on cut down day, I think, are a reflection of him. The fact that they did not keep Pritchett, Skinner, Brandon Smith. I think it's because of they're confident that Arian Smith is going to give them the upside that they need at this position, that he'll tap into that and represent their young up and coming player at this position. I think they like the progress he's shown. And as you displayed in your review, there's well-roundedness to what he's doing. I think he's more than, which I didn't totally know when I was first evaluating this. I think there's more to him than just being a vertical threat. Kind of just, send him out there, run clear outs. He could do more than that. So that's why I think he will be the receiver 2 by the end of the season. But I don't know if a ton of, yards and catches are going to come with that. And, we were talking about this, but when you start to, we just talked about it. When you start to dice it up, Justin Fields only has 3,000 passing yards to go around. And Garrett Wilson's taking, a third of that to 40% of that. There's not a lot for everyone else. And I think you'll see a lot of check downs to Mason Taylor, Breece Hall. So I don't think Arian Smith is going to put up big numbers this year, but in terms of snaps, I think there will be a point where he's the number 2 receiver and he'll make some big plays occasionally. I think it will come sporadically, but I don't think there are going to be big numbers with Fields at quarterback.
Yeah.
But I do think he'll get to that role.
Yeah, me too. And even if he's not necessarily catching the ball, it's just to open up the offense. So by snap numbers, he may be there, but really I expect it to be heavily, obviously Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, and Breece. So I don't know how often he gets to the 4th. Would you put 600 yards on Smith? I would say the under. I would expect more probably 400 yards maybe or so.
Yeah, that's right around where I put it. I put 350. So
okay,
I'm not super high in the numbers, but that's not as much a reflection of him as it is just this passing game.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's get into the depth chart, and we'll stack up some questions. We'll get to those later, and then we'll do a little bit of the Steelers and the Jets roster kind of against each other and all that stuff. But let me share the screen of the depth chart, and we'll kind of naturally let that bring us into talking about some of the trades and some of the other stuff that has gone on in the last 2 weeks. So I believe this is the updated one. Like I said, I don't know. I also hate when they do it backwards like this, when it's quarterback, fullback, and they have to go up for receiver. Just makes no sense to me. But nothing too surprising. Obviously, Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. I guess the small surprise. And I don't know if actually, can you bring up the practice squad just because I don't know it off the top of my head, just so we could talk about that in a little bit too. So if you have any practice squad guys to throw into some of these talks, that'd be great. But Justin Fields, Tyrod. A lot of people were talking about maybe Cook is your quarterback 3. They cut Cook, and now he is on the practice squad, correct? So really not many surprises from the quarterback position. But I am happy that they kept Cook on the practice squad just because of what he showed in the preseason. Also what Robbie saw in training camp. Obviously changed my opinion a little bit of him. So I think it worked out pretty well. Like the risk of letting him go was that he'll sign with somebody else. He didn't. You got him on the practice squad. I think that's the best situation possible for the quarterback depth chart, obviously, at this point.
Sorry, I just got back. What were we talking about?
Oh,
Fixing my
I was just
headphones,
talking.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I was talking about Fields and Tyrod being the two quarterbacks. Basically,
Gotcha.
we were, Cook kind of got some positive momentum because of what he did in preseason and what Robbie said, and that we were afraid to cut him because if they cut him, they might lose him. But the most ideal situation happened, and they were able to cut him but still bring him back onto the practice squad. And I asked if you could pull that up because I don't have it on me right now.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that I did kind of want him to be on the 53 just based on the health of these quarterbacks and not wanting to lose Cook for his potential. But, if, you were confident he could get through, then it made sense to take that risk and it worked out. So I think that's what you expected or what they expected by making that move.
Now, how shocked are you that Andrew Beck is on the roster? My guy. I think him just making the roster is a win. Like I'll take that as a win because nobody was talking about him. Oh, who is the fullback? They don't even have one. Who is this guy? Whatever. So I am thrilled that Andrew Beck is on the roster. I think he is your best positional blocker. So I would personally have him as fullback 1, tight end 2 at this point. Once Jelani Woods gets into the mix more, I would have Jelani Woods at tight end 2, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Beck as tight end 3, and then you have Ruckert at 4, and basically Stone Smart as a big receiver. But definitely happy that Andrew Beck made that roster because I think he's going to play more than some people expect.
Yeah, you and I were on that one pretty early, and I think in this game, and you said it, when it comes down to 12 personnel, I think Beck is essentially going to be that player. I know they continue to have faith in Jeremy Ruckert, but they also had Beck out there with the first team offense playing multiple roles. So I think he's going to play as the second tight end. And then, like you said, if there's ever 22 personnel, they want him to be a traditional fullback, then you'll throw Ruckert out there. But if it's just 2 tight ends, it's much preferable to have Beck in that position than Ruckert, despite him being labeled a fullback.
Yeah, and again, like when I watched Beck, I'm like, yeah, he didn't catch the ball a ton, but when the ball is low, when it's off target, like he caught pretty much everything that went his way. Some diving one-handed catches. I'm not saying he's Justin Jefferson or anything, but he's making a lot of nice catches there. Ran routes better than Jeremy Ruckert, so he literally does every single thing better than Ruckert. The only upside that Ruckert has that's higher than him is he's a little bit more like he moves a little bit better. Like he's probably more of an athlete, but Beck is better in literally every single aspect of football. So I would if Beck's on the field, Ruckert can't be on the field in my mind. That's how I'm looking at it. Now I guess he will be. Like I don't know if the Jets are have an inflated opinion of Ruckert. I'm not sure or not, but nonetheless, yes, definitely thrilled that Beck made the roster. Let's go and transition back to the state to this. And going to the running backs, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, all expected. We had the a little bit of like a preseason battle because of Donovan Edwards' first game against the Packers. Fell off the last 2 games. Kenan Iguanu had a good few games in terms of running the ball, averaging nearly 5 yards a carry, obviously doing a lot as a kick returner. And then they actually moved Donovan Edwards a kick returner the last 2 games. And I know against the Giants, he had 17 yards per kick return, which was bad. And Nagano came in and had like a 43-yarder in 1 return. So he definitely beat him out there. And then also as a running back, Donovan Edwards had some nice plays, but Nagano didn't look bad. I don't know if that's how you say his name, Nagano, whatever. But he actually had some nice runs the last 2 games. So I'm happy that he is there, the running back 4. And I'm happy he's not just a special teamer, that he actually showed some chops as at least a decent running back 4. So.
Yeah, and I think I wrote an article about it, but I think he could have a big game this week because Pittsburgh struggled with covering kick returns last year. One of the worst kick cover units in the league, and they lost some of their best players on kick coverage. They didn't really, we don't know, but if they'll improve or not. But they did lose some of their top players from a unit that already struggled, and Nwangwu has been one of the top kick return guys in the league since he came in. So, that's Jets. I think special teams has to win some games for the Jets. If they're going to get the 8, 9, 10 wins that might be their ceiling, they're going to have to steal a couple on special teams that they shouldn't have won based on offense versus defense. And I think they could do it with a guy like Nwangwu, with the way McNamara played in a preseason. Nick Folk, obviously, at kicker. He's been elite the last 2 seasons. So they have some good special teams pieces that could steal them some games this year. That is, of the 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams, I think that's probably their best one. So I like where they're trending. So
that's what we all hope for before the season. Like, hey, 3 phases of football. The Jets are really great special teams. That's our best. That's our best one. So Marvin Guns, another super chat. We appreciate it. Someone posted on Twitter a few weeks ago a video of Brees missing a gigantic hole. Don't know if you saw any concerns about. Yeah, Marvin, I know you listen to the show pretty often. We talk about Brees' vision pretty consistently on the show. That's not the best. Now, if you're talking specifically about the duo play, or was it duo or no? I mean, was it was a Packers game with that duo play, right? That everybody's criticizing. If you actually go back and either watch myself or Sabo break it down, it's a lot harder said than done to get to the gap that everybody on Twitter was talking about. And that's the problem with either taking your opinion from people, just random people on Twitter who have never, don't have much experience in it, or, like being at practice and stuff. Like, it's impossible to see in real time the actual holes and what the reads are and all this stuff. So if you're referencing this just because of the Packers game, then obviously that's you can't criticize that play so much. But in general, does he have bad vision? Yeah, no doubt. Like that's been his biggest problem throughout his career, is his vision. He's a guy who'll get you 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, 25, but it's not because of vision. All right, let's see. Hold on. Okay, back to the depth chart. I think the only thing with running back is they have Lawrence. Is it Toffoli or Toffoli or whatever? He's on the practice squad. I don't anticipate him being called up at any point for any reason, really. Going to wide receiver, Garrett Wilson. They don't have like Z or anything listed here, but your starting receivers are Garrett Wilson, Lazard, and Josh Reynolds. Do you think that that's what it is to start this season? If I would say so, right? Like, I think Lazard is your big slot, probably, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Oh, Arian Smith's the backup at 2 positions. Yeah, so you have slot here because you have Xavier Gibson behind him. So I would say Garrett Wilson's the Z, Reynolds is the X, which I don't love, and Lazard is your big slot. Do you think there's any different order for these guys starting the season, or do you think it's Wilson, Lazard, and Reynolds as your starting 3 and 11 personnel right off the bat?
I think at least week 1 it's going to be that. I mean, you think back to when even Garrett Wilson didn't start his first game, but it only took 1 game for them to change that. So we could see something similar with this. But the fact that Smith is listed behind, I mean, they don't have enough players. There's only 5 of them. But the fact that they listed him as the backup at both outside spots, I think that shows that he is close. If Reynolds doesn't have a hot start to the season, Smith could step up there. But Lazard starting slot over Gibson. We had Pritchett. There could be some upside here, but there's not much to be excited about with the slot. I mean, Lazard obviously has the size. They probably like him as a blocker, and he might make some good blocks, but receiving wise, it's hard to be too confident in either of the slot options.
Yeah. So obviously in terms of the 53-man roster and stuff, we need to talk about it really, but surprises, right? Like, I thought Lazard may not make it. It seems like we thought he was going to be on a PUP list for 4 weeks and open up a roster spot. He made it. Not surprising. In my world, I would just replace Lazard with Pritchett, or not Pritchett, Skinner. And then Gibson makes the roster too, a guy who, again, he's done absolutely nothing since 1 play his rookie year 3 years ago. So he muffed how many punts? How many punts did he return inside the 10-yard line? Is a consistent problem with him. You're taught to let it bounce over your head at the 10, unless obviously the coverage is really far off. It's like the 9 or 8 yard line, whatever. But fields at the wrong time, fumbles the ball, can't catch the ball. I've never just that play that Pritchett had against the Eagles when he stopped on a dime and juked a couple of guys out, and even against the Packers he had a play like that. I've never seen Gibson have the explosive short area movement that a guy like Pritchett has. So Glenn said it in a press conference, I believe, hey, you guys only see part of it, which is 1,000% true, but everything I've seen from Gibson since he's been a Jet minus 1 play has pretty much sucked. So I really did not expect Gibson to make this roster.
Yeah, and he cited something about he had a certain number, but he said there was something over like 100, 120 punt returns in practice that he caught without muffing it. And, I understand that training camp is being evaluated as much as preseason. We don't get to watch all of, very little of training camp at most. And outside of that, it's just, beat reporter stuff, which doesn't tell us much of anything. So I understand that that's part of the evaluation that we can't fully look at, but I would value 2 full seasons of him being a punt returner and having 5 muffs, 9 total fumbles in just 2
Brutal.
years versus like, okay, you caught it in training camp. I would hope you can do that. It's not applicable to the real game. So I don't feel like that's a good justification for him being on the team by Glenn there. So I don't know. I don't want to knock them too much. In the end, Jamal Pritchett he's probably never going to be much of anything in the league. That's what the odds are. But so I don't want to knock them too much for it, but it's just a difficult one to see any sort of justification that makes sense for this call. So, but he's on the practice squad. So hopefully we see him at some point. Although if we do, it probably means Gibson muffed more punts. So.
Yeah, I think I know who Eagles talking about here. Speaking of which, congrats on Joe Blewett owning a certain ex-Jet on Twitter, X2 or 3 Super Bowl champ. I believe his name is another word for boner. So, yeah, no, that was a fun one. Is Carter Warren currently on the roster? I was told that to let him develop, he should be a starter, and I was getting criticized for saying that if he's what I initially said about Carter Warren is that if he's a starter for the Jets, they have failed miserably, and now even farther than that, I've said before, like if he's your primary backup, the Jets have failed, and now he's not even on the roster. Like he, in my opinion, was overrated at Pitt. I watched him. I thought, obviously all relative, but I thought he was relatively soft. Really didn't have much aggression to his game at all. I didn't really like him so much. Then he came to the NFL and he sucked. So I think he's with the Falcons now, maybe. But weird that Carter Warren's not your starter after all this development that he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they had to draft Membu. They probably should have gone Tyler Warren. Although they could use another tight end right now. But
actually,
they should have gone that route. They're just stuck with Carter Warren.
Do you buy the stories of Aaron Rodgers handpicking Corley? I think he had saying it. Aaron Rodgers said that. I don't think he said he was the best receiver in the draft, but he said he was his favorite receiver in the draft, which can be taken differently. But yeah, I think he had a part in it, right? He was gloating about him. I'm sure the Jets at least took it into account. But moving on to the tight end position, we'll talk about the guys that we know, the guys who, the 3 guys who have been here. Stone Smart, I think, is a quasi big receiver. I don't really think he's going to line up at Y tight end really at all. Mason Taylor, Jeremy Ruckert. I anticipate it again being Mason Taylor, Ruckert 2, Stone Smart 3, and then Woods either being inactive or climbing up from the 4 slowly. So not much here. I like the upside of Mason Taylor, but you got to be even worried about his blocking a little bit because he was not a good run blocker at LSU. I thought he was an okay pass blocker. Stone Smart can't block at all. Ruckert is awful, extremely volatile with 80% of that volatility being bad. So not great, but at least we have Mason Taylor to watch. So hopefully he develops.
Yeah. I really wish there was more effort put into this unit, knowing how important it was going to be for their scheme. I'm glad. I love the Woods pickup. I mean, I think that's about as good as they could have done this past weekend, whenever that was, with the waiver pickups. And I think he'll be the tight end too at some point during the season. But like we said earlier, I don't think we'll see him in week 1 just because of the newness in the scheme. But if Ruckert comes out and plays the way I think we should expect him to play at this point, then I think as soon as week 2, we could start to see Woods be integrated a little bit.
Yeah, some Wood highlights for you guys. I like him. Upside as a blocker, he's definitely like long-limbed in terms of his legs, so it's not very conducive to being a guy who could really move guys with his base. But I like the catch radius. He has good hand strength, but his technique is bad in terms of catching the ball, so he'll have some easy drops. but ridiculously athletic. What, 6'7", 253, 461, right? Those numbers, 34-inch arms. So, and he plays to those numbers too. It's not like Zach Kuntz, like, oh yeah, tested great. And you watch him, like, it looks like he's running a 4.9 right now. Like, he's not looking that fast, at all. Woods actually does run that fast. So he's definitely going to offer you more as a receiver right now. He lined up all over the place and, isolated like he is on this play, in stacks and bunches, as wide tight end, as H-back, so he can line up all over the place, not afraid over the middle. So I like the film. Year one, he had a decent year, right? Like 300-400 yards, something like that. Maybe less. I think it was 300-ish type yards.
Yeah,
3
it's a little over
touchdowns.
300, and most of it was towards the end. He had a good run
Yeah,
in the year.
Year two, he had a bunch of hamstring injuries, right? And then year three, it was a toe injury. So you're hoping that the hamstrings are healthy, with Woods. And I think over time, he should be your tight end too, or not even over time. I think relatively quickly, he should be your tight end too, right? Like, he offers something in the receiving game that nobody else has other than Taylor. And in terms of just like throw the ball up there, I'm taking Woods over Taylor just because of the pure size and strength. So, I really like the Woods pickup for a, waiver wire flyer. Didn't mean that, but yeah, I like the pickup for sure of Woods. Do you have any other thoughts on Woods after either, watching him, doing your stats, so I've seen the review, anything like that?
I mean, the only thing is that I think it's pretty clear he's better than Rucker, and in terms of Stone Smart, just as a complete traditional tight end who you could actually trust to block, clearly better than him as well. So, we'll see how good he is. He got waived, but so you don't want to be overly optimistic. But relative to what the Jets have, I think he's pretty clear cut. It's the second high ceiling. So,
who is their tight end 3? Because they have Tyler Warren, they have Mo Alley Cox, who at least is a decent tight end.
They had a couple of different guys who were like block first types.
Yeah,
I think they kept 4 tight ends. They had 2 other guys who were like blocking centric that they kept.
Okay, so maybe it's a thing where they wanted the blocking guys for their offense and they didn't want Woods based on the injuries and all that stuff. But let's see, they have Tyler Warren, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, and Will Mallory. Yeah, like obviously, again, he's cut for a reason and all that stuff. But watching the 2022 stuff, like, I was impressed. Now I'm a Jets fan and I've seen shitty tight end play for my entire life, so maybe that's why. We had Ryan Griffin starting and all these other guys, Kellen Davis in recent years. So watching a guy like Woods is, I think he has good upside for the Jets. So I definitely think he'll be tight end too with time. Joe, you asked earlier what color is the Gotham jerseys. The color is Gotham green. Yeah, I don't think so, man. Like, if it was gray, maybe I would think about it, but I'm okay with the black, the white, the name of throwbacks, and I don't really need another jersey, I don't think. I am thinking about taking a few jerseys and changing the nameplate like we talked about last week, though. Moving on to the offensive line, nothing too surprising. I guess we'll hit on this right off the jump. Olu Fashanu, Max Mitchell. I anticipated them taking Max Mitchell over Carter Warren. Carter Warren offered 2 years of control, where Max Mitchell only offered 1. But I do think at this point, it's not saying much. I think Max Mitchell's been better than Carter Warren, and he can also play guard. So not so surprising that he's your backup left tackle over Carter Warren, right?
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of surprise with that.
You're not standing for Carter Warren to be here still.
No.
and then past that, they trade for I don't know if is it Essa? I don't know if it's Essa or not, but they trade for Essa Pole, or not trade for Essa Pole. They signed Essa Pole. So, what are your thoughts on him as a player?
I looked up the pronunciation. Okay, so it's Essa Pole. So Pole.
Oh, damn it!
Pole.
Of course, it's Pole.
But I've been saying Issa Pole, so
okay.
I
Well, if he's Pole, I'm technically Blue A. That's technically my name in French. That's what it's supposed to be, not Blue It. Just sounds so freaking bad. So you have to start calling me Blue A then, and not Blue It. If his name is Pole and not Pole, that's how I feel about that. So, I like the pickup though. I know you did some numbers and stuff, and he had probably, I think it was like 68 pass blocking snaps this preseason, and I don't know how many run. I feel like there's a lot less running actually by the Chiefs when he was in. Surprising that they didn't keep him, to be to be frank. Like after watching game 1 against the Cardinals, I'm like, oh, I'm anticipating him playing more in preseason game 2 and 3, but he didn't really play a ton at times. So yeah, surprising from the Chiefs, but based on what I was watching, I definitely liked him as a waiver pickup. Again, I'm not going to just I'm not going to hype guys up because they're Jets. I've shit on plenty of people. And when you're turning on a guy, a UDFA offensive tackle who was cut, you're not anticipating much, but I liked what I saw from him on film. So I'm happy with the pickup. And I would take him like right now, gun to my head, for 10 reps, one of them has to be in. I'm taking Pole A over Max Mitchell at left tackle.
Yeah, I think relative to, like you said, UDFA tackle off waivers, this is a pretty good prospect that you're getting for the back end of your offensive line. And the Jets don't have a lot of depth with their potential with the depth of their offensive line. They have plenty of young guys up front, but behind that, more like veteran side with guys like Myers, Corafor. I don't think Mitchell has much upside at this point. So it's nice to add someone who has a little bit of potential.
Yeah, good pass blocker. I think he's pretty sturdy, pretty strong. His hands are definitely strong. His base is definitely strong. Good anchor. The run game needs work. There's definitely some leading in the run game. Hand shooting from wide, hand shooting late. So the run game, no doubt about it, needs some work from Pole. But the upside is as a pass blocker, and he only played 4 years of football, and I was surprised with some of the techniques that he knew. Some of the awareness on like stunts and twists and blitzes and stuff. So definitely high upside with Pole. So thank you, Chiefs. And I know it's not it's not the be all end all with reactions from those teams. Like you look at the Chiefs fans' reactions from Pole getting scooped by the Jets, and Chiefs fans were pissed. So again, not always a great litmus test because we know plenty of Jets fans who have been pissed about people getting released or not or whatever, and those guys suck. So you can't base your opinion solely on that, but usually it's a good sign. And Chiefs fans were not thrilled that he was let go.
Yeah, and they also got
okay.
And we'll get to him, I guess, but they also got Cam Jones from them, who's a good special teams player. So got a couple of nice, and it also shows what a championship caliber depth chart looks like. The fact that the Chiefs can waive 2 of these guys and they just hop right onto the Jets roster, and you're excited about them and their upgrades over all these players who were competing for those roster spots. So it does highlight that as well. And the Colts too they haven't won a lot of games because they haven't had a quarterback, but they're one of the better drafting teams. And the fact that you could get Woods, he's just expendable for them, and he's, we're saying instantly the second best tight end on the Jets. Still goes to show how long of a way the Jets have to go to match some of these teams with their consistent drafting over the years.
I am going to throw a question to you. I have to jump off for literally like a minute, and then I'll be right back on. But talking about the offensive line, I'll be able to listen to you, so I'll throw you a good one, and I can comment on it when we come back. John Simpson, obviously at left guard. We have ABT at right guard, with Xavier Newman being the backup. Now, obviously, you're going to have Tippmann moving to right guard. Myers is going to be your starting center. Looking at the Jets, I don't know if you have the practice squad up or not, but what do you expect in terms of the corresponding move to be made for ABT? Who was brought up from the practice squad, or do you see anybody out there, maybe in free agency? So you could pull that up as well, that you consider maybe signing, or I'm sure you don't have guys we can flip a late 7th for or something like that on the top of your head. But practice squad and free agents, is there any moves you think the Jets could be making to minimize the loss of ABT?
I think practice squad, Cole Laval comes to mind first, and I'm looking at it to be clear. I don't have the practice squad memorized, but Cole Laval comes to mind. I think he's been relatively solid compared to, preseason offensive linemen, and he made this practice squad. He was there last year. Marquise Hayes is one of their priority UDFAs. I think he got one of the largest guarantees in this class. He made the practice squad as well. There's Leander Wiegand, he's their international pathway guy. He had some flashes. I would say he's probably behind the other 2, but I would say those 3 probably come to mind first. And the fact that they kept 3 different, they're all listed as guards on the practice squad, but 3 different guys on this practice squad out of the preseason this year definitely shows that they like the talent at this spot. So I would say there's a good chance that one of them gets called up. I'm leaning towards Laval, but they kept Wiegand. He was their international pathway guy, and that gives you an extra practice squad spot to use on him. So there's some priority with that. And Hayes was up there for their UDFA guarantees.
Yeah, let's see let's see if I can just go to guards and see if I could see who is available right now. I don't know if there's anybody in free agency who you consider. Brandon Sheriff, no. Shaq Mason, he was cut. I don't know how. I guess he's been pretty bad recently. John Feliciano, Cody Whitehair, Mark Glowinski. I think we've done work on Mark Glowinski. At least we talked about him. Jack Driscoll, Carter O'Donnell, and Jack Anderson. I don't know if any of those names, Shaq Mason made $12 million a year last year. Is he injured? I don't know what's going on with him or Feliciano, I guess it is. Would you just bring up Cole Laval, like you said? Would that be your number one, or would you maybe dip into the free agent? Obviously, you don't really know about these guys, but
I guess probably just call someone up. I don't know if any of those, because just like you said, the fact that we know these players and they have been good in the past. So if they're still available, there's probably a good reason for it. I'm pretty sure Shaq Mason has been pretty bad the last few years. I know he was Pro Bowler at one point. I guess just roll with your young talent. That's kind of what the Jets have been focused on throughout this offseason, is prioritizing the youth anyway. So I would guess just lean into that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Armand Membu, Chukwuma Okafor didn't look great in preseason. Again, I'm hoping he's closer to what he was with the Steelers than the Pats, because those are two completely different players. But moving on to the defense, I guess we'll start from back to front this time. Tony Adams, Andre Sisco, Malachi Moore, Isaiah Oliver. No surprises there. I do think they brought in both Dean Clark and Jordan Clark, son of Ryan Clark, to the practice squad. I thought both had flashes in preseason, and so did Jarius Monroe. Is Monroe on the practice squad or not? Because I actually thought he had quite a few good plays as a safety, but I don't remember seeing him on the practice squad.
Yeah, he's not on the practice squad.
Really? Yeah, that's interesting. So I thought he made, again, a lot of plays. He played some corner too, so a little bit of flexibility there, but pretty chalk with them. Malachi Moore, I think, was on the all preseason rookie team or whatever that was, but a very, very good game against the Eagles. I put up some plays against him against the Packers. I thought he actually had an underrated game against the Packers as well. So Malachi Moore, I think, is going to make an impact. Now, does he start over Tony Adams at some point? We'll see. But I do think even if he's the third string safety, he'll see the field some, because he offers something to this defense.
Yeah, and Robbie really liked the way he played. As you know, he had a bunch of long reviews and breakdowns out of his plays. But I'm curious to see how quickly he gets in there. And it's a volatile starting safety duo that they have there with Sisco and Adams. I think it could be great. Sisco could have 4 or 5 interceptions this year. He could get some of them early to win some favor, but he could also miss some huge tackles, make some big mistakes, and maybe leave the door open for a young guy. So I'm curious to see how quickly he makes any sort of push to be a true starter. And before that, whether, what kind of role they find for him to get him on the field.
Yeah, and I know there was more involved in that play. And I know Sabo did a 17-minute breakdown on the coverage bust against the Giants with Sisco, but overall it was still mostly his fault. You're depending as Stiggers on the guy to be in the middle of the field there. You got to be in the middle of the field, on that concept. So not a great play by him. There's some times where he looks at the quarterback too often. He'll get beat deep. There's some times where he'll whiff a big tackle. So you got to be a little bit careful with Sisco, but I do think they'll be better than last year at this position, which isn't saying much because they were terrible. But I do think Sisco will make some more plays on the ball, and I think adding Malachi Moore is big for the depth. And I like Oliver as a backup slot / safety. So I like him. Past that, not many surprises at corner, right? Where you have again, you have Oliver listed as the nickelback. with Michael Carter obviously being the starter. You have Sauce, you have Stevens, you have Azaria Thomas, you have Stiggers. I would say the biggest surprise here was the fact that Stiggers made the roster over JBC. I think JBC made more plays in the defense, but I think like we highlighted and we saw in preseason, Stiggers made more plays on special teams. And we're talking about players 40 through 53, something like that. It's more about special teams impact. So even though JBC was maybe the better corner at this point, you need your gunners, you need all those guys. And then JBC was claimed by the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. So good luck to him. So. We stick with Stiggers. But realistically, like I wish we could have kept both, right? Because we only have, is it only 5 corners, right? It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half, right? Like he almost counts as a half corner, half safety. So you have like 3.5 safeties, 5.5 corners. So I would have personally liked to see them make, some room for a JBC, whether that be getting rid of a Braden McGregor or getting rid of Jeremy Rucker or something like that. So I can say that's the only part I'm a little bit disappointed about, that JBC is not on the roster anymore.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the special teams value, and that's always something that's important for the back of the roster battles. But I really feel like the Jets prioritize it a little more than normal. I went back and watched that kick return touchdown that Nwangwu had last year against the Seahawks, and it was Stiggers who had the big block that really opened up the lane for him there. So it even goes beyond just making tackles in punt coverage. It's also about the blocking for the return units, and Stiggers showed some ability there. So, and he was really good with the punt coverage this preseason. So, but yeah, like you said, I think defensively the edge was JBC, and he had some plays on special teams too. So I would have liked to see him stick around. I felt like there's some potential there still to be tapped into. And he got, picked up pretty quickly by the Browns. So it does show that
he had a good preseason for sure.
So
yeah. Moving on past that, you're going to tell me a lot about our new linebacker, Cam Jones. I don't know much other than he's a special teams ace, but you have Quincy, you have Sherwood as your starters. You have Ball, who we expected to make the roster. I would say it's a little bit of a surprise that Jamin Davis didn't make the roster based on the fact that he saw reps kind of early. I'm not sure if he's even on the practice squad or not. I would say that's a surprise. Zaire Barnes made some good plays, some bad plays, again, a little bit volatile. The coaching staff, the GM, the Jets overall, just team doesn't have many connections to him. So he's gone, not a surprise. Ball making it, not a surprise. Again, a little bit surprised that Jamin Davis isn't on the roster. Is he on the practice squad? And then are you also a little bit surprised by that?
He's not. Yeah, I was a little surprised because he started that with the first team defense, he started in the opener. And it seemed like McCrary Ball was losing favor a little bit. But special teams value again. So I also think it shows the value that they've put on that phase.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about Cam Jones, another guy I think the Jets brought in. They claimed him from the Chiefs, apparently a special teams ace. So like you're talking about, especially with McNamara now and Folk, who was 40 for 42 or whatever it was last year, just ridiculous. Field goal percentage the last 2 years, the most accurate in the NFL the last 2 years. Putting some emphasis on special teams. They're bringing Cam Jones. What'd you find when doing some research on him?
Yeah, he's another surprising cut because he was a mainstay for their special teams the last 2 years. He played every game. He had a lot of tackles and was one of their best players. Even in the playoffs, he had a lot of big plays the last 2 years. So this is a legit special teams guy. He's good enough to fill what they're losing in Charles and Chris Boyd, who was supposed to replace Charles. So I said it earlier. I mean, you kind of were laughing at it, but I think the special teams is going to be really good and maybe steal them a game or two. If the Jets overachieve this year, I think this is going to be a big reason why they do. Because, just think of last year. How many games did they lose because of special teams that they should have won? And, if you flip a couple of those, that 5 turns into 7, turns into 9 a lot faster than you realize. So I'm optimistic about this special teams. At this point, with AVT's injury, I would say the offensive line, but with that, I think the special teams is the thing that I'm most optimistic about going into this year. It's just the Gibson Pritchett thing. That's the one thing that I don't understand. But other than that, there's a little bit to like. Yeah.
Are the Jets back to running a 3-4? They'll be running a 4-3. I think they'll have some 3-4 principles in terms of like getting into some 5-2 looks and having guys 2-gap and things like that. But they'll be running a 4-3. Ball was voted as a team captain over Gardner. Big deal or no? A little bit odd that Sauce is not a team captain, considering he's the highest paid player on the team right now, right? Right, or is Garrett Wilson a little bit higher than him? I forget. I think Garrett Wilson might be a touch higher than him, actually, right? Because Gardner's like 31 and he's like 32.5 or whatever it is. So one of the highest players on the team. So surprising that he's not team captain, because is AVT, Ball, Sherwood, who I forget who the other ones even were, but
Garrett,
I would say a little bit surprised.
Fields, so
yeah, I would say a little bit surprised. But do I think it's a big deal? No, I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's like, hey, Ball means more to this team than Gardner does. I think you're going to have one special teams guy voted as the team captain, which I think the players vote on it. So I don't know if their opinion is, I don't know if it's just the players vote, because he just got there. The players, he got there for 2 days and like, oh yeah, this is the guy who's leading our special teams. So I don't know how exactly it's done, but I would say slightly surprising that he's not, but I'm not going to say it's a concern or a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
Another question. It's cool. Nick Folk is back and all, but if you're keeping Nick Folk to start, again, most accurate kicker in the NFL the last 2 years, why not keep Morstead? I think we touched on this, and I think we saw this. Morstead actually wasn't great last year. When you look at the numbers and stuff, right, Nanya? Didn't he struggle?
Yeah,
a little bit more than people expected. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you have anything off the top of your head or whatever with Morstead, but Morstead fell off last year. That's kind of why. Whereas Nick Folk was, again, the best kicker in the NFL in the last 2 years. Doesn't have great distance, but you're talking about inside the 50 with Nick Folk. He's pretty much automatic. Knock on wood. With the Jets now, he's going to go 75% for the whole year. That's our luck. But Morstead fell off. That's kind of the reason. Anything to add to that, or should I move on to the depth chart?
Yeah, no, Morstead fell off a little bit, and they obviously saw something with McNamara. He was pretty much as perfect as a punter could be in the preseason, so he could have a great year.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving to the defensive line. So I think our biggest concerns, my biggest concerns on offense, are receiver depth. At this point, obviously tight end a little bit. I do like the addition of Woods. I think my biggest concern on the team, though, is the edge depth. I really don't love what we have at edge. Past McDonald, who, even if he got stronger, I don't think he's going to be a plus or even average guy in the run game. I think if he's below average and not just bad, I think he'll kind of take that. Jermaine Johnson, efforts there and all that stuff. You have no idea if he's going to be anything in close to average as a pass rusher this year. And then you have Tyler Barron, who, people are like, oh, we did nothing in the preseason. I think you're kind of grandfathered in if you're like if you're a draft pick, as long as you're not like a late draft pick, and he wasn't. He was a 5th, right? Michael Clemens, who I don't know, and then Braden McGregor. So I would have loved to see them bring in some more like depth here, because Tyler Barron and Clemens being your primary backups is pretty gross, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's bad. That's the only way to put it. You have a starter who's coming off an Achilles injury, and you would like to have some depth for him just in case he doesn't come back as strong or he needs a little bit of time. But, now there's a lot of pressure on Jermaine Johnson right away, because anytime it's just thinking about the plays where one of those two starters aren't on the field, it's just not going to be a good setup for the Jets, because you don't have any other defensive tackles who you feel great about as a pass rusher. It's great they kept Taylor. He has some upside, but think about if you have McDonald, Phillips, Q, and Clemens as your 4 pass rushers on a 4-man rush. It's very easy to just send a double at McDonald and we'll deal with Clemens one-on-one. That's not a problem. We'll deal with Phillips one-on-one and we'll double Quinnen. So it's very limited. You like the top 3. If you have a healthy Jermaine Johnson, and between him, Q, and Will McDonald, that could be one of the better trios in the league. But it's a big drop-off after that, specifically the pass rush. We like where defensive tackle is at a little bit more with the run defense at this point with these 2 pickups that they made. But specifically pass rush-wise, very, very big drop-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm putting some Phillips highlights up. Harrison Phillips, 29 years old, was at the Bills the first 4 years of his career. The Vikings the next two, right?
3
Maybe
years
three.
in Minnesota. Yeah.
3 years, was a team captain for them as well. So you're bringing a team captain, really good run stuffer, not going to offer you much in the pass game, pass deflections. He is smart, like knowing offensive pass schemes and stuff like that and how to attack the weaknesses, but overall just not athletic enough to really burst and finish and get to the quarterback. The bull rush, he comes in high. The hands aren't great in terms of the bull rush, but in terms of a run stuffer, you're talking about a still, as a nose tackle, a very good run stuffer at this point in his NFL career. I don't care what PFF says because he was definitely good last year. What are your thoughts on this? Because obviously, even before Cowart was injured, we were worried about, okay, who's the nose tackle? Like, who's going to be the run stuffer on this team? Because Cowart's not like he's actually small too. He's 305 or whatever, and Phillips is only 307. But I said it in Phillips' review. Go watch it. He's 307, but basically just consider him like 325. That's like how he plays. He offers none of the athleticism of a 307 pounder, but has the weight or like the anchor and the strength of a 325 pounder. So the Jets got their nose tackle. How'd you feel about Phillips after again studying him a little bit?
Yeah, I was surprised to see that he weighed that much because just anytime, and we've seen a good bit of him from when he was with the Bills and even the Vikings. Do they play them? Yeah, they played them twice the last 3 years. We've seen a lot of Harrison Phillips, and I was surprised that he was listed at that weight because he just seems like such a mass of force in the middle. And, as you kind of attested to, it's just the pure strength is absurd with him. He had the 42 bench press reps and he plays to that. So
Yeah.
to have someone who can actually, and they haven't had, let alone on this depth chart, they haven't had someone like that since they had Foley Fatukasi, someone who could just clog gaps in the run game.
Yeah.
And to have that next to Q, he's going to get more one-on-ones. He's going to make a lot more plays than he did last year, Quentin Williams, in the run game, I think. So this is a really good pickup. I mean, I know right now it's a pessimistic time around the Jets today with the AVT news, but I mean, this is a pickup, I think, that definitely raises the defensive floor quite a bit. I think it's a lot more than just, we lost someone, here's a guy to fill his place. Like Harrison Phillips is really good. He, in terms of making plays in the run game, he's been right up there for years now with some of the best guys in the league. So
Yeah.
that's a big pickup. And run defense is the main question. I think you like the coverage in the secondary. Like we just said, they have some top end pass rushers. The depth is a question, but they have top guys both inside and outside. It's the run defense is the biggest question with the defense. And now you throw Harrison Phillips in there and Briggs for depth, and suddenly it looks a lot more optimistic with that run defense. And that could change everything for this defense as a whole. So I feel a lot better about the defense, to be honest, than I did a couple weeks ago because of these two trades. So, and that's even considering the holes we just talked about. It's just, I think they really filled a big hole with this interior run defense.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the edge depth, but in terms of like before all this stuff happened, I would say what's your biggest concern? It's the run defense, and it's mainly because of who's playing next to Q. And I think you just got a really good run stuffing nose tackle, so that's awesome. And then Briggs individually, what do you think about him? 39 bench reps. A 7th round pick, I think, last year by the Browns. And then obviously, the Jets trade, and for Phillips, it was what, a 6th and then a 6th that turned into a 7th. So you traded 2 6ths for Phillips and a 7th. And then Briggs was it a 7th for a 6th type deal too? Yeah, 6-7 swap for Briggs. So what do you think about Briggs individually?
Yeah, I like it. I think you're getting upside with him. Another guy who, as you pointed out, also has that strength in the upper body, another big bench press guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a different type of role. He's more of a 3-tech. Harrison Phillips, more of an A-gap type of player. So I like that you're filling 2 different roles with that. I think especially second tier of this defensive line, you were looking at Jay Tufele and Leonard Taylor. There's some pass rush upside with those guys, but I don't expect much run. I don't expect any run defense from Tufele. Taylor, like you pointed out, has some upside, but I think I'm more interested in him as a pass rusher. So to have a boost in the run defense on that second string is promising.
Now, my biggest question with the defensive tackle room is that they have, in my opinion, 4 3 techs and 1 nose tackle, right? So like if Phillips is gassed, or you even want like another beefier guy to come in there in short yardage situations, like who is the backup 1 tech nose tackle? That's my biggest question. I'm assuming it's Briggs because he's probably the strongest of all the other defensive tackles on the team. Like I've seen him make at least some plays on the interior. And like I said in the review, his explode, like his upper body strength is pretty ridiculous. I don't think he has the best base, and he's not good against combos. But if like you have a guard trying to kick him out or something like that, like ISO block, he's a pretty good run stuffing 3 tech. But my concern is who's the backup nose tackle, and I think I guess it's going to be Briggs, a little bit miscast as a nose tackle. I don't know if you see anything else, because it's definitely not Tufele. Past that, Leonard Taylor, I don't think so either. Like who else can really even do it? So I guess it's kind of Briggs by default, which I don't necessarily love.
Yeah, I would think so. And maybe they projected him as someone they think they could coach into that role. It's not, like we said, it's not primarily what he's done. He was mostly a 3 tech, despite being known for his run defense. So I think maybe they project that he could fill in for those snaps. Maybe we'll see some of Q kicking inside, and they'll throw Taylor out at 3 tech or Tufele. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how they manage that. But starting for this defensive line now, when you have Will McDonald, Harrison Phillips, Q, and Jermaine Johnson out there, that could be one of the better starting lineups in the league. I mean, that's 3 quality run defenders, assuming you have a healthy Jermaine Johnson. And then pass rush, you got 3, also assuming healthy Jermaine Johnson, 3 quality pass rushers, 2 of them potentially elite pass rushers for their positions. So, those 4 guys on the field, I think you feel really good about it. It's just anytime one of them sits down, you have a big concern of how you manage that.
Yeah, you should to be a little bit concerned about, McDonald in the run game. You have to be a little bit concerned about JJ in the pass game. You have to be a little bit concerned about Harrison Phillips in the pass game. But overall, I think it's a good unit. Like one of Q or McDonald should get there, and JJ and Harrison Phillips both, and obviously Q being all plus in the run game too. Like I really do think it's overlooked how important Harrison Phillips' addition is to this Jets team. So definitely excited about that. And then moving on, really for special teams, Folk, McNamara, Gibson, Nguanu, and Hennessy. The only surprise here is that Gibson's on this team still. I guess we'll see where that goes. Again, muffs the ball all the time. I don't understand, but I guess we can move on from that. I guess we can move into the Eagles into the depth chart from the Steelers, and we'll kind of compare them and stuff like that. Any thoughts, I guess, right off the jump about this game? Anything you want to mention off the bat? I do think it's going to be a ball control football game. I'm not anticipating a high scoring game. I don't think is the stat that Justin Fields hasn't won a game when the opposing team scored 20 or more points. Is that what the stat is, or it's 21, something like that?
I had to look at it. I haven't heard that exact one. I wouldn't be shocked, but
I think it's that.
I'll check that right now. But yeah, I mean, initial thoughts, I totally agree with you. I think this is going to be every bit as ugly of a game as people are anticipating. And I think it goes beyond just like, Justin Fields is bad, Aaron Rodgers is old. I think both of these defenses just match up really well against the other offense. And it's also week 1. Both of these quarterbacks are on new teams. Aaron Rodgers hasn't even played with that team yet. So I think both offenses are going to struggle, and it's going to come down to obviously the swing plays, turnovers, and special teams. I think that is what will ultimately decide it.
Yeah. What do you think about, I guess, looking at their receivers? I think they're pretty solid, right? With Metcalf being their one. Sauce has had some success against DK Metcalf. He's definitely, I think if Sauce is a struggle with anybody, it's more the quick, shifty guys, the Tyreek Hills of the world. The bigger guys, the Metcalfs of the world, the Jamar Chases of the world, even though he's not huge. Those type of guys, I think he does a pretty good job against, like the more physical receivers. So I'm taking Sauce versus DK all day. Calvin Austin is at least a decent receiver, right? And then past that, you got Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson. Am I missing anybody here? No, I don't think so. So I'll take the Jets corners in terms of like matchups. I guess we can kind of talk. Yeah, I guess we could do that, right? That used to be an old Coolier Jets thing. We can do.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like, was it Jets receivers versus other receivers? I think we can do, instead of that, we could do Jets receivers versus their corners and then see who wins each matchup. So Jets corners versus the receivers on the Steelers. Who do you give the upside there?
Yeah, and quickly, I checked that Justin Fields stat. That is true. He has not won a start when the opponent had more than 20 points. He's got a couple of 20s in there. That's where they put the cutoff. But 21 plus points, he has not won yet. So that is the magic number. And he's had some big scoring games. He's won with 40, 37, 33. But if the opponent has over 21, he's winless to this point. So that is a magic number that he has to break through if the Jets are going to be legit this season, unless this defense is that good and they never allow 21 points. Now that they've Harrison Phillips, maybe that will be the case. But receivers of the Steelers versus Jets corners. I like the Jets corners here. I think anytime Sauce gets DK, and DK will make his plays. He did last year against the Jets, but I think Sauce matches up well against that type of receiver who relies on contested catchability because he's just so good at the catch point at playing the ball. And I think the Jets just have better depth here with Carter in the slot, Stevens. And Stevens is a huge wild card. We'll see what type of year he has, but I think the Jets have the advantage here. How much do you think we'll see of, compared to the previous years, like man coverage with Sauce, him traveling and things like that?
I don't know, because it seemed like he was talking about in camp that like he was going to move around a lot and stuff. But my thing was with watching Stevens, like Stevens strictly played right cornerback, Sauce strictly played left cornerback. So I'm assuming they keep them there primarily. Again, I think Sauce moves in on like third downs, big situations. He'll file over receivers, but I think like first and second down, or minus like big plays, Sauce will be playing left, and they can follow when it's absolutely necessary in clutch type situations. But in terms of man versus zone, I think they're playing a little bit more man than zone, because that's what the strength of all their corners is, in my opinion. You know, and I think Sauce is good at neither, but I'm going to take Brandon Stevens in press man. I'll even take Sauce because of his size in press man versus off coverage. Michael Carter's good at everything as well, but Azaria Thomas is better in man coverage. So it'll be interesting though. I don't think he's going to be traveling with DK and match up against him. 70 reps or whatever it's going to be. So we'll see what happens.
I think we'll definitely see more man coverage this year. I just don't think it's going to come in that way where he's moving around. Not a lot of teams even do that anymore. There are some guys who will do it a little bit. And like you said, there might be certain situations where they'll match him up on the tight end or on the top receiver. They'll find a way on third down. But in general, I think there's a reason they signed, Sauce being a left corner and they signed a right corner. So I think they'll mostly stick with that, but we will see more man coverage, which could lead to him matching up against these guys more often. I just don't think it'll be like following to either side of the field.
Yeah. Now looking at their, I don't know how we're going to do like safeties and running backs versus our guys or whatever. I guess we can, some of the positions we could be more general in. Their offensive line versus our defensive line. Watching their offensive line last year, because I watched Okafor for a couple of weeks. Said that actually no, that wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago. But I don't think their offensive line is great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's kind of maybe an average to below average offensive line. I don't know if numbers tell you differently, but I don't think Broderick Jones has been great to this point in his career. I think Samalo is solid. I'm not sure. Mason McCormick, Troy Fatanu. Again, average to below average line, or do you say it's a little bit better than that or worse than that?
I think it's in that range, but it's definitely one of the younger offensive lines. So there's a huge spectrum you could get here. Broderick Jones is in there, hasn't been great so far, but he's on the left side, which is where they wanted him. He was supposed to do it last year, but Fatanu got hurt. That kept him on the right side. So he's on the left now. We'll see if that helps him or if he has a year 3 leap. Fatanu missed most of last year. We'll see what he has in store. But yeah, overall, this isn't a bad offensive line, but it really depends on those young tackles and the type of leaps that they take, if this is going to be a great unit. But I wrote an article about it. You're going to see Will McDonald against Fatanu in this game. And Fatanu's talented. He was a first-round pick, but and he apparently had a really good preseason, but this is just his second career start, first one in almost a year on the road, and he'll be going up against Will McDonald most likely for most of this game. So that's a big opportunity for Will McDonald to assert himself in this opener.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm going to take the Jets defensive line overall versus their offensive line. I think Will McDonald is better than either of the tackles they have. I think, Quinn Williams is better than any of their interior offensive linemen. JJ, I might even take over either one of their tackles. So Jets defensive line advantage over their offensive line. Jets corners advantage over their receivers. Their tight ends, like I don't know if you do tight ends versus safeties. It's not always the case.
Safety, running back versus linebacker, I guess.
Yeah, like kind of. I don't know. I don't think we really do that because obviously,
or is this quarterbacks head to head? We'll do quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't know if we can really. I think the way you guys used to do it, where it's just receiver versus receiver, probably stacks up the best because how do you, again, tight ends, we're giving safeties, but linebackers are in coverage against tight ends all the time too. So it's kind of hard to say, but looking overall at their tight ends, pretty solid, right? Pat Freiermuth, at least a solid starter. Jonnu Smith did some really good things with Miami last year. Connor Hayward's a blocking guy. Darnell Washington is a freak of nature, just absolutely massive. So their tight ends are pretty solid. The depth and even the starters are good with this group, so you can't overlook their tight ends at all.
Yeah, definitely. From a Jets perspective, you're jealous of the blocking depth here, just the size, athleticism, having guys who you could trust to go out there and throw some blocks. And two of these guys are probably above average at the minimum pass catchers, maybe even better than that. So tight end versus tight end, it's no contest. Tight end versus Jets safety, whatever you're comparing them against here. Well, linebackers would be different. If we're doing tight end versus safety, definitely Steelers tight ends, I would say.
Yeah. And then looking at their running backs, nothing to write home about. I would say probably one of the weaker groups in the NFL. I know Warren is decent, but he's not a stud. Kenneth Gainwell has been kind of bouncing around a little bit. Not great either, in my opinion. Caleb Johnson's the rookie. I guess he's hurt, so he's not a factor in this game. But Warren and Gainwell, nothing. They're definitely it's not Saquon or Derrick Henry or anything like that.
Yeah, they hitched their wagon to him a little bit. They just signed him to a new contract, and he hasn't started a game yet in his career. So they're kind of doing the Tony Pollard bet because he's been efficient, but it's different being the guy compared to only getting a few carries a game. So this is just like a running back. I feel like you can usually evaluate in just a couple different tiers. Like there's the game changers, there's clearly a major issue, and then there's kind of just everyone else. And I think this is in that group.
It's kind of like as a starter, he's kind of like a jag, right? Like I think he's better than Najee. And when I watched him versus Najee, I'm like, why are they not playing Jalen Warren more? So
I feel like
I think they upgraded.
Just isn't good. He
Yeah,
kept
no,
getting the ball
I don't.
because he's a first round pick, but I feel like every time I watched him, he was missing plays.
Bad, right? Like I didn't like him at all. So I think they added by subtracting. Even though you'd rather have Najee as the backup probably over Kenneth Gainwell, but just the fact that Warren's going to get more carries now, I think it's probably an upgrade for them at running back position. But yeah, nothing to write home about really with them. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback, realistic expectations. I'm not talking like stats or anything like that, but I expect him to probably be a little bit better with the Steelers than he was with the Jets, but I'm still expecting him to be more in the, 16 to 23 type range of quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, is that a fair kind of stratosphere for him?
I think that's fair. I might even be a little lower on the ceiling just because, I don't think he was in that range last year, and he's another year older.
No.
And roster wise, I don't think it's probably similar to the Jets. I think receivers downgrade because you don't have Devontae as
and
second.
Yeah, it's a
Devontae
ridiculous
and
one too.
Jets offensive line was maybe better. They had some injuries, but I'm sure the Steelers will get injured at some point. The only thing is it's just a better organization and coaching staff.
Better coaching.
And I'm not saying Arthur Smith is the greatest OC or anything, but it's just he's not Nathaniel Hackett. But then again, Rodgers picked Nathaniel Hackett and had say in a lot of those things. So I think it kind of washes out a lot of these things, and he's a year older. So I don't know if I even see a 16 ceiling for him. The floor is high in the sense that, like, I don't think he'll be awful, but I don't know. And so you definitely think he's better than Fields, though, even considering last season.
Yeah. If I was trying to win the most amount of games this year for the Jets for just whatever reason, I'm taking Rodgers over Fields for a season. I like gun to my head right now. Rodgers is the 19th best quarterback in the NFL, and Fields is the 25th this year or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, even though in terms of like the rest of the offense, like maybe Fields adds the running element that Rodgers doesn't and opens up the run game. Like the Jets may be even better overall for Fields. So in terms of individual at the quarterback position, I'm going to take Rodgers over Fields at this point. But I know I'll probably get killed for that. But people just hate Rodgers because he's gone. But let's be realistic here about what Fields is. There's a reason he's on his third team. Nonetheless, moving to their defense. You got Derek Harmon, who I guess is going to be out for this game. You have Keanu Benton. It's Keanu Benton, right? Keanu Benton, Isaiah Loudermilk, Daniel Ukulele, Cam Hayward, and TJ Watt. So really, it's these two guys. Like Cam Hayward, even though he's, I don't know, probably what, 35, 30. No, he's probably like 35, 36 at this point, right? He's pretty old.
And Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig are in there.
Oh, yeah, true. Because they play the 3-4. So they have a stupidly good defensive front with Hayward, with Watt, with Highsmith, with all of these guys on there. So what we're concerned about the defensive line right now. Our offensive line is very good, but their defensive line is probably a top 5 unit. Top 10 at the minimum unit in the league. I think the Jets are trying to get to top 10. So being fair, I think you give the advantage Steelers over the Jets offensive line because of experience. They've been together for years. They have TJ Watt versus a rookie in Armand Membo in his first year. Like it's the Jets might get beat up here a little bit. So they're going to have to really try to control the game through the ground like they are most games, but especially this game, you don't want Fields taking long dropbacks and things like that. You got to get rid of the ball quick.
Yeah, I already thought this was one of the probably few games that the Jets offensive line might be overmatched on this schedule. And now with AVT out, you're looking at Cameron Hayward going to draw some matchups against Myers. And you already had Watt going up against Membu, and now he doesn't have the guard he's been practicing alongside for most of training camp, a very good guard who would be able to help him out there with, Tippmann. And one of the things he struggles with is helping his guys out next to him.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes even more dangerous now without AVT. So, yeah, I think the Steelers are in a really good spot in this matchup.
Yeah, like I'll take Fashanu versus Highsmith or Herbig, and he'll get beat by those guys too because they're both even good. But then past that, like you said, Watt versus Membo, you're giving the advantage Watt big time. And then Hayward versus Myers, watch out there. Past that at linebacker, Patrick Queen, good linebacker, Peyton Wilson. So really, and I think even Benton has been at least a solid nose tackle as well. Not bad, not great. I think he's at least decent to solid. So just overall, including the linebackers, again, a very, very stout front seven there from the Steelers. And then you move into the secondary, and you're talking about a really good secondary. Like I know Darius Slay is older and all that stuff, but he's still at least decent at corner. You have Ramsey, who I think is overrated in general, but still a top 20 corner in the league. I don't think he's near top 5. I don't think he's near top 10, top 20, top 25, something like that. Joey Porter Jr. is at least decent. Deshaun Elliott, Juwan Thornhill, I don't think they're the best in terms of their safety combo here, but Slay, Porter, Ramsey, I think they have at least a solid secondary here as well, behind a really good front seven.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the Garrett versus Ramsey matchup because Garrett cooked him last year. I know Stefan did an article on that for us, but I think that's something they got to try to exploit if they get that matchup between Wilson and Ramsey. But outside of that, I think you like every Steelers DB against the Jets weapons, because until the Jets weapons show you anything, they're just among the lowest ranked players at each respective spot of the depth chart in terms of the wide receivers. So yeah, you got to like the Steelers corners, especially, Slay is a big play type of corner. Will take some gambles to force takeaways. We know Fields likes to hold on to the ball. I'm sure he's heard that from his own teammates being on this team where Fields was last year. He's an easy guy to kind of get a beat on. So we'll see if Slay can make a play based on that. And then also with the defensive front, the Steelers are always really good at punching the ball out. I just pulled this up, but between Watt and Herbig last year, they had 10 forced fumbles just between those two guys. And like I just said, Fields likes to hold the ball. He tends to take sacks that he shouldn't take. That's dangerous. There could be a ball punched out in this game. So Fields is going to have to get that football out quick and not take sacks because these guys know how to get it out. And that's how the Steelers win these games that they're not supposed to every year, because they get takeaways and it helps them overcome the fact that usually their offense is not good and they shouldn't win. But when you get takeaways, it makes up for that.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna hope that they blitz the shit out of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers didn't handle the blitz very well last year. Can't really move a lot, so it's kind of weird to say. But stack the box, blitz Aaron Rodgers, hit him, frustrate him. He's a little bit older, doesn't take hits as well as he used to. Hope that his connection from only being there since May with guys like Calvin Austin and DK Metcalf is not good, right? You got to stop the run game first and foremost with the Steelers. I'm not overly concerned with Rodgers necessarily just carving them up, but hopefully a lot of people are in order for free Big Macs, because with those sacks you get a free Big Mac. So hopefully we get hopefully we get 7, minus the result, but was it the 2016 season 7 sacks on Andy Dalton versus the Bengals? AJ Green carved up Revis. So let's get 7 sacks. Let's get 7 free Big Macs versus Rodgers. Just let's get the win instead of the loss there. But do you see anything different with the defense versus our offense is the same thing. We have to run the ball because let's be realistic. Past Garrett Wilson, who they're going to shade coverage to. Ramsey's going to be on him. He'll get his, but he's obviously going to be a huge focus of their defense. So you have to go elsewhere. And Mason Taylor's a rookie. Josh Reynolds is a decent 3 or 4 realistically. So it's going to be like that for the rest of the year, though. It's every week we're going to say, hey, you really need to run the ball here, but especially true versus the Steelers with their great pass rush, and then obviously versus their offense too. I would dare Aaron Rodgers to beat you because again he's brand new there, so there might not be as good of chemistry. So
yeah, and maybe if those 7 Big Macs become available, that could be another way to kind of phase me out here and end this Jets playoff drought.
Oh yeah,
if I have all the
cholesterol kill you,
yeah. So that's another possibility. But yeah, I agree with your game planning sort of points. I wrote about this earlier, but Rodgers, he had 2 really bad games against Glenn with the Lions 3 years ago in 2022. And it was because Glenn jacked up the man coverage, jacked up the blitzes to even higher rates than what he already was doing with the Lions. And he struggled on those plays when he was facing the blitz, especially man blitzes. So that's what you want to do if you're the Jets. And I know it's a high risk type of way to play defense, especially against a quarterback who's smart enough to identify what's coming, find his matchups. And he is a jump ball vertical type of receiver in Metcalf. So there's a risk to it. Maybe you give up a vertical play or 2, but in the long run, I think it's going to pay off because Rodgers at this point does not want to stand back there and get hit. We saw it throughout last season. So the last thing you could do is just let him stand in a clean pocket and dice you up. So if you have to play more man coverage, sacrifice players in coverage to ensure that he feels the threat of pressure, even if you don't get there. That's the biggest weakness that I think he has at this point, is that he's kind of putting pressure on himself before it's even there. We saw plays last season where, teams blitzed and the Jets picked it up, but Rodgers would still miss a throw or check it down when someone was open vertical because he's anticipating getting hit and doesn't want to. So that's why you have to blitz and just create that sense of pressure and potential pressure to force him into, even if he doesn't make a big mistake, he'll just keep checking the ball down rather than, evaluating deeper reads because he wants to get that ball out quickly. So I agree going heavy on the blitz. And then, offensively, the Jets are just going to go as far as their run takes them throughout this season. And it's going to be a little harder without AVT.
Every week it to be that.
But that's really what it's going to be, because the pass game is only going to be as effective as the run game allows for it to be. The Jets aren't going to have good passing games where they keep getting stuffed on 1st and 2nd down and they keep having to pass out of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. It's just very unlikely to happen. But if they can create 3rd and 3s, 2nd and 5s, and take shots out of those plays, that's when they could potentially hit some explosives. So those early down run plays are going to be critical for putting Fields into advantageous spots to throw.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. That then even David brought it up, in the chat, saying like that Rodgers was so bad versus the blitz last year, and like you mentioned with Glenn, like Glenn blitzed the shit out of him, and Rodgers couldn't handle it. Like Rodgers is not like stepping into throws and taking hits and all that stuff, and you're hoping with some pressure in his face and him not having chemistry with the receivers, it can lead to a pick or two from Rodgers. Like within the first quarter, get a Quincy Williams hit on Kyler Murray-esque play on Rodgers, and the game might be done there, because Rodgers might not get back up. And, I don't want to be the guy hoping for injuries, but tell me right now, hey, Quincy Williams breaks his rib during the game or doesn't break his rib, I'm going to take the broken rib. Like, hit the shit of the guy. It's football. I'm sorry. Like, at the end of the day, I'm sorry. Hit the hell out of him. Like, hurt him. Not like, I don't want the purpose to hurt him, but if you break his rib,
make him feel you. Yeah.
For sure, dude. And if it results in a bruised rib, a broken rib, and he doesn't want to come back into the game, and they play, who's their backup now? It's is it still
Rudolph?
Is it still Rudolph? Yeah, Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
I'm taking Mason Rudolph versus over or before Aaron Rodgers. So hit the shit out of him. Marvin says, "Do you guys get nervous before the season starts?" I do. 100%. I do. Like later on in the season, once I don't care anymore, and I'm just so numb to everything Jets by October. But September, I'm still nervous. Early September, the first game, I'm nervous. Before the games, I'm pacing. This game is going to be 50-50 Steelers-Jets fans. That's going to suck to be there, but I'll be there. I'll be nervous. So, no doubt I get nervous. I know Nani does as well. Like I definitely know he does that.
I would say less than I used to, but as this game gets closer, I will, because once you start to like actualize the fact that this is going to happen on the field, and you start to think about the idea of Rodgers winning, and people are going to talk about the revenge, then you start to feel like, all right, there's something on the line here. Let's at least win this game. I don't know where we're going after this, but you want to get this one. So I think the nerves will build up a little bit when we get to Sunday.
Yeah, imagine a playoff game or like a division clinching game or anything like that. It was funny. My wife's father is like doing like Super Bowl raffle tickets, whatever. And my mother-in-law was like, "Oh yeah, like ever go to the Super Bowl or whatever?" I was like, "Yeah, I would love to go to the Super Bowl, but never with the Jets." Like I couldn't do it. Quite literally. Like I think anything past a wild card game, I think divisional, conference championship, Super Bowl, I would be at home, because I can't imagine being at a conference championship game and getting shit talked on the way out. I literally couldn't handle it. So I'm just going to stay home. David also writes, which tight end, I guess, can we trust to help Membu versus Watt? Beck? Yeah, he's easily your best option. Harold says, guess who's back? Been a while. What is up, Joe, Nani, and all the JetX fam? I finally catch a show in AVTs possibly after the season. Great, Harold. Leave. You're going to create more injuries. Get out of here. I miss you, but get the hell out. Only a few minutes left, though. Your score, I don't know if you, score prediction. I don't know if you do score predictions or whatever, but what are your thoughts? Who wins the game? If you had to give a score, what would that score be?
Today's news really shakes me up, because I was starting to trend towards leaning to the Jets. I really like the defensive matchup against Rodgers.
Yeah.
I touched on it earlier, but I think the Jets special teams could tilt this game. I'm going to stick with it. I honestly feel like Rodgers, first game, he played no preseason, new environment. Jets defense is a great matchup. Glenn has an ideal scheme for him. I think the Jets will get some mistakes out of him. And the Jets, just the way that the Jets play, even if they might not score a lot of points in this game, I think they'll be run heavy. They'll punt a lot, and they'll avoid making that big mistake. And then with special teams, the advantage their kick return, I think, is going to help them. I think the Jets are going to take something like 16-13 or something like that.
Can I? I'm not going to say which way yet, but I could swear to God that's my score prediction: 16-13, a low scoring game. Legitimately, 16-13 was exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, man. Like it would be so nice if they could start off with a win, one because of the whole Rodgers thing, and then realistically, not only just the Rodgers thing, it's also the fact that look, after if they lose this game, you're looking at Buffalo Bills, which is most likely 0-2, and then you go to Tampa versus a good Bucks team. At
that's
least a
part of my
decent Bucks
thinking
team.
too. Is like a law of averages type things. I don't think they'll be like 0-4, 0-5. I don't think they're that bad. But also, if they don't win this game, I'm not picking them for Buffalo. If they lose this game, it's hard to feel like that. Then at Tampa Bay, at Miami, Dallas is a lot more winnable now.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of a law of averages. I don't know if I see them 0-4, and this feels like their best shot in the first 4 games. So that's part of it for me. But the NFL is weird. They could lose this game and beat Buffalo. Stuff like that always happens.
Yeah, we beat the Bills with Zach Wilson.
Right.
The game five is Cowboys, and game 6 is what's the after the Cowboys
Denver
game
in London.
If like, and I'm not even trying to be, it just is what it is. I'm being realistic. I think if the Jets can go 2-4 in the first 6, it's kind of like all right. Obviously, we're 3-3, but Buffalo, you're assuming a loss. In terms of just who's the better team, Buffalo is a better team. The Bucks are the better team. I think Jets Cowboys. I think that's a pretty even matchup. I think Jets Steelers is. I think the Steelers are probably the better team overall, the better franchise and all that stuff. But I think we can win. And then give me the Jets over the Dolphins, even though that's away, right? So you're giving the Dolphins the home field advantage there. And the other game is the who?
After that, you have home versus Dallas, and then you're Denver and London.
Denver.
Yeah.
Denver's a tough one. So you said 16-13 Jets. I'm gonna say 16-13 Steelers. I'm just being, just going with my gut. I've walked out of there disappointed so many times, just so many times. It's unbearable. And just leaning back into my history of being a Jets fan, I'm going to walk out disappointed again. Low scoring, ugly game. I saw somebody posted that there may be rain again on this freaking Sunday. Like, are we really starting the year off with more rain? Which I think may help the Jets. I don't know, because you have Fields. I'll take Fields over Rodgers in terms of like running the ball and stuff.
That Fields rain game he had against the Niners. Remember that kind of mud bowl type of game?
Yeah. I'm praying. That was against the Niners. Yeah. I really wish they could win, and then really past that, loss versus Bills loss versus the Bucks, but Dolphins they can win, Cowboys they can win. So I think you kind of hope for 2-3, or you hope for 3-3 after the first 6, but I don't think you could personally be mad at 2-4 over the first 6, right? Just based on how strong the schedule is, and then weeks like 10 through 18, you have like a bunch of Browns,
Cleveland, New Orleans,
New Orleans,
Miami at home, which good. They suck in December, and good Zach Wilson chance by that point.
The Pats twice, the Falcons. So I'm going 16-13 Steelers. He's going 16-13 Jets. So 29 points of scoring. I'm hoping the Jets blow them out. Gucci Finesse here saying 30-17. I wish that would be absolutely excellent. Nani, anything coming up the next couple of days, or anything previous articles that you want to promote?
Check out my stat predictions. That was a fun one. I touched on some of them in here, but I got offensive stat predictions up. I did one today, kind of unpacking the AVT injury and all the fallouts of that. How does it affect their run and pass blocking at each position and the long-term contracts and all of that? But I'll definitely have more game plan stuff coming up throughout the week. Just Steelers focus on specific matchups as well. So look out for those. Yeah. And Cool Your Jets I'll probably do at some point next few days. I'm glad I'm patient with those episodes, because now look what happened, and I'll be able to react to that and let the news come in a little bit. So no, I think those the articles like scouting the other team and stuff is great, because transparent, I just don't have time or really even the want to scout the other teams and stuff. So some of those articles make some really good points they don't really think about. So I would definitely check those out. And then for me, I just released a Phillips review, a long one and a short one, released a Briggs review, short one and a long one, and a Woods review, short one and a long one. Poll should be in tomorrow as well. So again, the short reviews are all their own topics now. It's not just like, hey, this is first 3 clips of a 20-play review. It's now
strengths, weaknesses, main strengths, main weaknesses, all of that stuff. So we appreciate you guys, and we will see you after the Jets hopefully wax the Steelers.